In this video, I'm going to take you through the exact process that we help the client go from $0 in business credit to over $280,000 in working capital. Now, I'm going to pull back the curtains and show you all three phases that you can implement in your own business. So let's dive right into it. Phase number one is the business and the business owner. So first things first, when working with the business is we want to know how their business is structured. So we want to know, is it a sole prop? Is it a single member LLC? Is it a multi-member LLC? Is it a partnership? And then according to the operating agreement or how the business is set up, who has the most leverage in the business? Is it 33% across the board if it's 3 partners? Is it 25%? Is it 4 partners? Is it 51-49? Is it 95-5? These are all key metrics that we like to look at because this is going to help us structure who's going to have the biggest lever to pull on when we're looking to get access to some more funding. Because there are instances where maybe partner A has a relationship already established with maybe Wells Fargo and partner B has a relationship established with Bank of America, but maybe partner A has the better credit. So naturally banks are going to want to take a look at one owner versus the other. And so we want to play to the strongest hand. The second thing we take a look at in this phase is going to be the business profile. Now, specifically, we're looking at liens and UCC filings. So let's break that down. If we're looking at UCC filings, what this means is that if you've taken out a loan or if you have some type of debt, that means that the original creditor is going to place a lien on the credit profile. But there's really 3 things that ends up happening. Number one is it in good standing, meaning you've been paying it off on time? Number 2, is it in bad standing, meaning you've been late or it's been defaulted? This is going to hurt a business owner from getting access to business credit. And then number 3 is the precision of the UCC filing. Now, I don't really see this getting talked about much in the business credit space. So here's what that means. Some banks, especially the bigger ones, they want to have what's known as a first place UCC filing or a first place UCC lien on the business. What that means is, God forbid, the business goes underwater or it defaults, they want to have first rights in order to be able to reclaim some of the losses that they took from some of the credit that they extended out to you. And so if you go, let's say, to Chase or let's say US Bank as just a general example, more often than not, if you're going for a business line of credit, they're going to want to have first place on a UCC filing. Now, pro tip with UCC filings, you can still have a UCC filing, whether you have one in first position or if you are in good standing, and still get access to business credit. You just want to make sure that you set up the framework the right way, which is going to come in later steps. The third thing that we want to pay attention to in this first phase is going to be the banking history and the current accounts. What this means is kind of like what I mentioned earlier. If you have, let's say, partner A, and they already have maybe 2 bank accounts on the personal side and on the business side with Wells Fargo, having that relationship already established is going to move the needle the most and the fastest so that you can go back into maybe that bank and ask them for a business line of credit or ask them for maybe a loan that they're not televising that's usually just being promoted inside of their own banking ecosystem. That's one of the biggest levers that you can pull on is first take a look at who do I have the strongest banking relationship with, which is one of the first things that we look at with our clients. And then the fourth piece that we look at is the naming convention of the business, the geolocation. This is both in state and operationally. I'll explain what that means here in just a minute. The business's revenue, if they have any, and then lastly, the classification of the business. So when we're talking about naming convention, we're referring to how the name is structured on the entity. Remember what we mentioned earlier, where if a business has multiple partners, if it's a single member, if it's a multi-member LLC, that's the structure. But we want to take that a step further because banks are going to take a look at the naming convention. So are there pieces in the name that's maybe going to raise a red flag with the business? So if you're in real estate, maybe keeping real estate development off of your entity is a good idea. If you are in construction, maybe keeping the name construction off of your business is a good idea. It's going to move the odds in your favor. When we're referring to geolocation, both on a state front and on a operational front, what that means is where is the business located? This is huge because we're able to play to the hand of where the banks are located for that entity. So a company that's maybe established in Wyoming is going to have less funding options than someone who's maybe established in Georgia or someone who's established in Pennsylvania. So some business owners take two different routes. Number one is they're paying attention to where they're established. And then number two, they're paying attention to where can I open up a domestic entity first, and then where can I open up a foreign entity second. The foreign entity side plays a big role because this opens up the floodgates to the overall amount of banks that they're going to have access to. Now, keep in mind, a little pro tip with foreign entities is that you could create something known as nexus. And that means it's a taxable event. So you want to pick the state that you're choosing wisely, because if not, you and your business will be subject to some of those tax laws. Again, go ahead and talk to your CPA about that, but let's move on. Now, revenue is going to be an important piece because this lets a bank know, okay, how liquid is this business? Do they have good cash flow? Do they have good collateral? And do they have good credit, both on the personal and on the business front? But let's say that you're a complete startup. One of the best things that you can do is go after stated or no doc type of products, which is what we're going to talk about in this exact funding framework. Now, really quickly, if you have a business and you are looking to get access to working capital, whether it's 50K, 75K, or 100K, we would love to see where you're at and how we can help you out. Go ahead and book a call down below over on insightinnercircle.com. I'll go ahead and pin that down in the description. We'd love to see where you're at in your business and see how we can help you scale by bolting on our done with you funding system. I look forward to connecting with you. Now let's jump into phase two, which is leveraging the perfect banks. Pro tip, just because you see a ton of social media posts or a ton of YouTube videos talking about a bank and how they're approving other businesses or other entrepreneurs, you want to tread lightly because they may not be the best bank for you. Let me explain. You want to tally up all of your old accounts and all of your new accounts. This is going to be important because you're going to start finding a correlation between which banks have been the easiest for you to open up accounts with. This is usually a soft indicator that, hey, if I already have an LLC, I can maybe take them back into that bank, re-meet with a business banker and help my business get funded. If you're finding that they're making it really difficult for you to even open an account with them on the personal side, that's going to be another indicator that may be a bank that you want to stay away from, at least for the time being. Because not every bank and not every lender is going to favor your line of work. So what you want to do is when you go in and when you're talking to a business banker, you want to find out a couple of things. You want to find out, have you dealt with my type of business in the past? The same way that they're interviewing you to see if you're a legit business owner, you want to be interviewing them as well. So it's a two-sided fit. Do you work with my type of business? How much funding have you gotten for my line of work? And what products do you guys have available for my industry? These are three key questions that I always tell my clients to ask a business banker. It's going to do two things for you. Number one, it's going to let you know off the bat how sharp of a business banker you have. Is it someone that's going to go up to bat for you when they're presenting your file to the underwriter? And then number two, you're going to find out how thick or thin the possibilities are that you're going to have to be able to achieve the funding that you're looking to get based off of the amount of products that they have available for your business. So a couple of different funding products that you want to ask them about: business credit cards, business lines of credit, business term loans, SBA loans, equipment financing. Now, before we go into phase three, which is the exact products, and banks that our clients use to get access to over $280,000, I first want you to remember this formula whenever you're creating a funding round. The formula goes as follows: partnerships, big banks, regional banks, local banks, and credit unions. Those are the five that you want to pay attention to. Now, whenever I'm with a client and we're looking at their spreadsheets, we're looking at their P&Ls, if they're an experienced business, and we're looking at where they're located with, again, everything in phase one, I'm going through this exact model right here. We're trying to find some quick wins. Do they already have partnerships set up with banks? Meaning, are there banks that they already have relationships with? What type of big banks do they already have access to? Do they have a personal line of credit? Do they have a business line of credit? Do they have a personal account? For local or regional banks, how many of them are there within their area? Is it something that they can use their domestic entity for? Or is it something, if they're operating maybe across borders and across different states, is it something that they can tap into through a foreign entity? And then lastly, I'm looking at credit unions. And the reason why I'm leaving credit unions for last is because they're typically easier to get. And so I want to go after the tougher accounts first, which more often than not is going to be the bigger banks. So with all of that being said, let's put it together because phase 3 is the funding framework with the exact banks and the results. Now, all things being equal, every funding framework runs in 30 to 45 day funding sequences. Here's what that means. Based off of all the accounts that you are about to hear, we were able to achieve this within 30 to 45 days from start to finish. Now, every person's timeline is different, but this was the timeline for them to achieve $280,000 because there was a few moving pieces that we had to help them take care of along the way. So the first bank that we helped them get access to was PNC. Now with PNC, they were able to get over $115,000. Here's a breakdown of that. It was a $75,000 business line of credit, a $40,000 business credit card. Now the sequence with this bank is they had to wait 30 days. So what we recommended was, hey, open an account first. And then once you open the account, go ahead and go back in through the same banker that helped you open the account and then apply for the business credit card first. Adding another 10 to about 15 days once you activate that card, then go back in for a business line of credit. Now, a pro tip with PNC is whether you are a complete startup or if you are an existing business, PNC is one of those no to low doc type of banks that are working right now, at least at the time of this recording, that are helping people get access to these lines of credit. So this is definitely a product that you want to take advantage of while it's still hot. Now, the second bank was Wells Fargo. They were able to get access to over $80,000 in business credit, 50 of that coming from a business line of credit, and the other 30 of that coming from a business credit card. The reason I have them on this list is because they already had an account with them. So they already had the established partnership with them. They already had the account. They already had revenue running through that business entity, floating in through that business bank account. Bank number 3 was Premier Valley Bank, and that was a $45,000 business credit card at 0% for over 12 months. And then bank number 4 was another bank that they had already gotten access to on the personal side. So they just had to present their business documents, make a couple of adjustments with the banker. Again, part of that was the name, part of that was their classification of the business, making sure that it was falling within their guidelines of a low risk entity. And that was $25K on the BLOC side and $15K on the business credit card side. Again, 0% interest for over 12 months over on the business credit card side. So if we tally all of this up, that gives us a total of over $280,000 of working capital for this business. Now, this process is going to work for you regardless whether you are a brand spanking new business, meaning you just opened up your LLC, you have no revenue, you're just getting your business credit off the ground, or if you are an existing business where you have an 80 plus on the paydeck score, you have a full understanding of your P&Ls, you're bringing in some serious revenue. But the main focus that I want you to take away from this isn't so much the banks, but rather how this whole thing is broken down. Because if you can understand the how, then the banks don't really matter. Because at that point, you know exactly what the banks look for. So if one bank decides to turn you down, you're able to take that information of how you structured your business and take it to the next bank that's going to approve you. And that's how we're able to rinse and repeat this funding process. So if you found value in this content, consider hitting that subscribe button down below. Join this community. Don't forget that anytime we're not posting on here, we're posting over on the Insight with Irv channel, which is our podcast. So if you like what we have going on over here, you'll love what we have going on over there. But other than that, until next time, everyone, I will see you in the next video.